stuff, and then some more recent stuff. So that's kind of what I do, super lush, romantic. I like over-the-top work, lots of texture and tons of different types of flowers and foliage. And cool, okay, so my company's called Royal Bee Flower Company. I was established in 2017. So a huge part of having my business grow really fast, for me, I believe, is a lot of who I am as a person, and I think it will be the case for everyone. And so, in general, today I'm not going to be like telling you how you need to run your business. I'm really more sharing you with how I did mine, and I'm going to try to be as candid and as open as possible about that. So, if something resonates with you, or if it's something you feel like that's something you need to work on that worked for me, then that gives you some tips and tools for you as well. I also want to say I'm based in Los Angeles, super, super high, wow, what's that word? When there's too many? Saturated, yes, overly saturated market. So I'm really proud of what I've done. It's kind of, I surprise myself at moments. But at the same time, it's totally different than being in a tiny town where there's maybe no money or, very little money, or it's different. So this may not work for your industry, but you may still be able to pull some stuff from it. So me as a person, so how I got into flowers was that I've always kind of played with flowers. I'm a craft hobbyist. I'm basically a walking, talking wedding. I bake, I do paper craft, I can pretty much do anything. If I see it, I can make it real. I'm also a perfectionist. So for me, it's just my skills are innate. Like my very first bouquets, I'm still proud of. Like there's nothing that I've done where I'm like, ooh, I've grown a lot. Now I have grown a lot because of really great workshops and stuff, but it just comes naturally to me. So that's kind of where I get a lot of my design skill. And the way I got into the business itself was I graduated from college. Well, actually, I lost a brother. I did mobile pet grooming for 15 years with my mom. I'm third generation entrepreneur with women in my family. We all have our own different businesses. And I did mobile grooming for 15 years. It got me through college. After my first brother died when I was 25, I decided to start something that I was passionate about because grooming was not bad. I love animals. Washing them, a whole different thing. And so basically, I went to school. I'm a cultural anthropology major. I have really great background. I loved all of my extracurriculars. All the ones I chose have helped me with this business. Cultural anthropology helped me with this business. I minored in social psychology, huge in helping me understand how to kind of relate to my clients and sell to them without being a business major, although I kind of wish I did that too. I'm awful with numbers. So then I graduated and I still didn't know what I wanted to do. And I thought about podcasting and all these other things because I like everything and it's really hard to focus, but I couldn't find what I was passionate about. I was really frustrated. Then my next brother died. And then 18 months later, my dad died. And then 3 days later, my best friend died. And I did all of their memorials. And the flowers are what really pushed me through it. It's what really got me through all that crazy, because that was the most depressing point in my life. And I just had a friend 6 months later see my posts of all my flowers and was like, I have a job for you. And I had no idea you could even be a studio florist. No clue. I thought you'd have to have brick and mortar, which I never wanted. So once I had this sort of inkling, I was like, oh, yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. And so within 3 days, I booked my first wedding with a stranger. And I used Thumbtack and a bunch of other little marketing tools that I would never touch now with a 10-foot pole, but it got me the jobs at the beginning to get the experience I needed and to get the portfolio building and all of that. So that's my flowers grow from shit. So in my professional career, I started my first weddings, my first year averaged between $2,000 and $3,000. The same sized weddings a year later then started averaging about $5,000 to $6,000. And now this year on that same exact size wedding, which is like 100 to 150 average, they're going to be ranging between, I'd say, $9,000 and $12,000. And I'm seeing that actually booking, and I've been able to see that transition happen very quickly. And it's really cool to see money coming in and clients actually wanting me for that much money, which I thought prior to this would have never existed. And I went to lots of webinars and was told that it would happen, and I was like, I don't know about that. And then to see it actually happen when I did put the work in, it's been phenomenal. So we're gonna have to power through these. I'm probably gonna run out of time, but I feel like this is gonna be more of a question-based thing for me, so I'm gonna try to not talk so much because I talk too much. So topics of discussion, common sense, intuition, education, the apples and oranges of floral business comparison, systems and practices that work, pricing for the stage of your business, customer communication and management. So we're gonna try to get all that real fast. So write down your questions, because then we can get back to them at the end. So again, third generation female entrepreneur, that played a big role in it, watching my women do their thing and having that power and that tenacity when that fire is lit to just go and do every single thing it takes to make something work. I started college when I was 25, so actually it's all fresh in me, kind of, which is much better, and I was passionate about it, so I wasn't just like pushing through because my parents had told me I had to. And then I already shared that I was a world culture and social psych major. So the first thing I did, well, no, not the first thing I did. The first thing I did when I started my business was that invested-wise was actually get Curate, which has been amazing, and I'm so glad I did that. The second thing I did was I realized when I was sending flowers to a friend and I braked and the flowers flew out of the vase, was that I think I needed to learn about mechanics. So I decided to take a really basic course. It was 2 weeks with an AFD designer in Orange County, Phil Relota. Totally not my style, but it was affordable, and I got my basics down. In 2 weeks, I knew everything I could possibly know about floral mechanics, and the tools, like understanding what all that weird stuff was at the store that I had no idea what it was for, and how to get creative with those things, which has been really helpful with installs and that kind of stuff. So I think it's really important to invest in learning the basics. I Google everything before asking. I think every florist is most annoying thing is when you're in a group and you see somebody ask such a simple question, the answer's on Google, and you're just like, just Google it. Like, don't waste my time. Ask me something you can't Google, you know? So I Google everything. I do every webinar I can possibly get my hands on when I have time. Conferences, floral groups, and social media, like we were talking about the flower groups on social media, and then workshops for skill and networking. Workshops for networking is huge. So I go to workshops all the time with really incredible florists. I invest in them. You can write it off, travel to a faraway place, enjoy it as a vacation, and network, because not only are you going to learn a little bit, even though I don't learn as much as I wish I could learn, because I just know stuff, but I learn some stuff, and you get to network with not only the people that are there, but these incredible floral designers that will really help build you. So sorry, it's a little cut off, but so my first thing was from the okay, so no, let's see, veterans and beginners, referral, client-based versus starting from scratch, okay. So this is something that whenever I did workshops with these huge, like business workshops with these huge names, I found like there was this gap, right? Like, cool, you know a lot, you've been around for 20 years, but you don't know what I'm experiencing right now, because although you were once in my shoes, you've forgotten, and B, it's a whole different world. So when they say, you know, well, blah, 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 and you're like, referrals, 90% of your clients come from referrals. When you first start, you don't have referrals. You hope to get some, but you're waiting for those brides' friends to get married. I mean, then hopefully that bride doesn't want her own vision with a different, you know, it's just, they come, but it comes down the pipeline. So figuring out how and where to advertise for the specific client you have at that specific point in your life. And for me, that was a big difference. Like, veterans are really great and they're filled with amazing advice on so many different levels. But when it comes to starting a business right now, sometimes they're just off a little, or I just feel like personally, you're missing what I need. Like, I have all these questions you can't answer. And that's why I think I might be able to help if I can get through this and actually answer your questions. So I think it's really important to look like a veteran, so fake it till you make it, basically. So from the very beginning, you're having this idea of what your brand's going to be, constantly evolving and getting bigger if that's what you want. And make sure your website and your portfolio on your Instagram match that. And is it, no, okay, no, it's a little bit further back, but anyway, I was gonna show you some of my very first bouquets I made so you can see from the beginning what I did. And my first wedding, I think I made $200. My second wedding, I think I made $4. But the pictures are beautiful, my flowers were stunning, and although I've never lost money on a wedding, at the very beginning for me, it was really important to show something I wanted to do. It wasn't just about the profit. I'm thinking like, this is my future portfolio. Like, I want to show something that I want to do more of, not just make, white roses and eucalyptus and call it a day because that's what they can afford. I was lucky to get really great clients that wanted really beautiful stuff. So let's see. So investing in ads, third parties, and whatever it creates the best return of investment. So you have to invest in advertising and you have to try stuff out. Don't try it out for 6 months. I've tried Yelp and Facebook and all of those ads that you actually pay for. And unless it's truly directed towards a bride who's getting married, then it's not really worth your money. All these places are gonna try to Yelp once, oh, but blah, blah, it just doesn't do anything. It's just too expensive for what they're giving you. Now, if it's cheaper, it might be worth it, but it's just too expensive. But you need to try those things yourself. I'm saying this to you right now, but you have to try them yourself, at least for a month, to see maybe that will work for you. And I don't know, trial and error and just trying something out, investing that money and seeing is in my opinion, what worked best for me. And it's changed. Like, I used to use Thumbtack. That was for about 8 months. And then I was like, yep, nope, I grew right out of that price bracket real quick. But it allowed me to have about 15 clients my first 6 months of business, which some people can't even get in a year. And yes, I wasn't making a ton of money, but I wasn't expecting to. It was my first year of business. I had bigger goals, and it was, the future and my portfolio and other things. So being everywhere on Google. So third parties, I decided to ditch Wedding Wire because I felt like it wasn't really working for me anymore once I started raising my prices more. And still with the knot, I get about 4 or 5 bookings out of that a year. I'm gonna keep it another year, and as my prices go up, if it doesn't do much for me, I'm going to kick them too. But what I do really like is being a preferred vendor. You do have to get approved by these blogs, so like Style Me Pretty, Green Wedding Shoes, blah, blah, blah. But they approve you, and if they approve you, you have to pay money, unfortunately. You think it's like, oh, you prefer me, so it's free, but no, you pay money. It's not a lot, though. Not compared to Wedding Wire, not compared to The Knot. It's like $25 a month or $400 a year. It's not a ton of money. And what's great about it is when you Google them, when you Google yourself, you come up in so many different places. Like, I have 5 or 6 third parties I'm preferred vendors with. I have my website, I have my Instagram, I have Facebook. Like, if you Google my name, I am everywhere. So if somebody's stalking you, they're gonna be like, oh, she's everywhere. And I personally feel like that's made a difference for me. So look like a pro from day one, which I kind of shared with you. I've created high-end beauty from the day I started. If the budget allowed or not, I didn't let that stop me making it extra pretty if possible. And this is really important. You only show work you want more of. So kick those pictures of the boring stuff out of your Instagram feed. Like, only show things that you are proud of and that you want more of. That's going to be huge on getting clients that have more money. Oh, thanks, guys.
Just try to get the whole thing.
So what didn't work? So I'm going to ditch ad options that don't work as you use them. So say something works for you for a little bit, you're raising your prices 4 months later, all of a sudden it's not working for you because all you're getting clients are those, it went from the $1,200 clients that have, 300 guest count and 10 brides that you couldn't do because that's ridiculous, to now there's the $3,000 clients that have that, which you maybe could have tried to make happen at once, but you're done with that and you're moving on, and now, so as you grow and your prices go up, which should happen quickly, especially if you're doing a lot of jobs, then you want to ditch those ad options and try not to get too invested in things for a whole year or something like that. Try it out for a month or two. Yelp, Google Ads, all of those things were too expensive for me. I tried it briefly. Nothing came out of it. It wasn't even like one job, like nothing. I'm sorry, if I'm spending $400 in a month, if I don't get one call based on it, it's not worth it, and I'm leaving. Constantly evolve, again, grow, edit and change your contract and pricing constantly. If you're starting from scratch and you don't really know what you're doing, say, you just want to make sure you're just taking those webinars when somebody's like, I have the best contract, and they're really great florists, and you're like, I don't know how I feel about my contract. Change, edit, change, just keep growing and evolving, learning, taking workshops. I don't stop, you shouldn't either. So these are some time-saving techniques that veterans do. This was really hard for me because I was so afraid of not being able to talk to that one person and waste my time with somebody who couldn't afford me, because I was convinced that maybe, just maybe, I could convince them to have more money all of a sudden and like do my pretty, and yeah, once in a while that would work, but the amount of hours I spent when that didn't work, in the end wasn't worth it. And it took me about 8 months to figure this out. I learned about vetting and how to do it properly and quickly, and I realized, okay, I'm gonna try this, and I have not looked back, and I'm so happy. I have a really great email that I'm hoping I can actually send you my entire intro email. I get an intro, I get my introductory email saying like, hey, it's me, I'm interested in your flowers. I have my assistant who I used to pay, and now she's just the name in an email that I send out and pretend I'm her. And so this would be my gatekeeper. And I also had this, but I want it to be me, because this is like, I want them to know that there's this really great relationship they're going to build. And I came to the conclusion, yes, once they pass the gatekeeper, they're going to get all the magic. But until they pass that gatekeeper, I'm extra special, and I'm reserved for extra special clients. And that actually works for people who have money. They want that. They want to feel like they're extra special, and you're not just willy-nilly available to everybody. They want to feel special. So the gatekeeper is important. So in the email, I talk about my pricing. I give huge brackets. Like my base price bracket, I think, is like for 100-person weddings, like almost $5,000 to $7,000. So I talk about around there, like, it could be a little different if it's this, or it's very lengthy, and I don't care. I'm lengthy, so it is part of my brand. But it forces somebody to read it. If they're my client, they'll read it. And if they're my client, they're gonna have that money. And if they don't have that money, they never bother me again. It's literally copy, paste, done. And then I either have a client, we're gonna do a consultation, or I don't. So it doesn't even matter how many inquiries I get. It takes me 3 seconds and I'm done. And then my consultations are also over the phone. I don't meet with clients until after they've booked. That was a quick one. I couldn't keep going on with like meeting with people that didn't have money, and it wasn't okay. So I already shared here, it was my first business investment. It was amazing. I'm sure you guys all have it. If you don't, you have to get it. And the 24-hour incentive. So this, I'm really bad at getting back to clients. Really bad at it. I forget, I'm busy. I'm doing a million things at once. And I'm like, even though I'm excited about booking, sometimes I have 5 proposals out, and I'm like, wait, who sent what when? And should I get back to them now? Has it been long enough? And it's just hard to find their emails, and like, it's a lot to juggle. So I have a really gnarly incentive. If they book within 24 hours, I give them their bridal bouquet for free. Complimentary is the word I like to use. Free is cheesy. This is $350, $400. I max it. If they want something really crazy, I give them a discount off that bouquet, but it's about $350 worth of bouquet for free. With service fee and all of that, that saves almost $500. I do not lose money doing this. In fact, the bridesmaid bouquets usually pay for the flowers and the bridal bouquet anyways, but it's such a huge discount, and any person that is serious about booking with me books me within 24 hours because of this incentive. Otherwise, they might sit on it for a while. So this has been really, really great. So these were my first wedding flowers. That was my very first wedding. That was my second one. And I generally only post either really beautiful photos of iPhone photos that I take with really pretty lighting that have been edited, or I just do pro shots that I really, really like. But that's just my feed thing. Everybody has different feed stuff. For me, that's just what I prefer, a little bit more curated. So here I shared with you a little bit. My first year, I focused, it was 2 to 3K average. I grossed $125,000, and I had 37 events. My first full year in business. I focused on my portfolio and branding, figuring all this, and by that I mean I just researched the shit out of everything until I figured out what would work. Cheap marketing, trying new things. I did lots of work and got lots of experience. So this helped me because, you know, you just need that. Some people say they only do 3 or 4 weddings in a year, and that's great, but you need to figure out how to get the money to do styled shoots, or just find ways to get yourself more experience. Because you need that for your portfolio. You need to look like you know what you're doing. Learn and grow, so pricing, social media expectations, and self-worth. I think these 2 are really important. Self-worth is really important. In the beginning, it's okay to charge less because you have to grow, and I know a lot of people would kill me for saying that, but as long as you're growing and you're eventually aiming to be charging what industry standard is for whatever that means to you in your area, then you're fine. You just got, everybody's moving and manipulating and changing. Everybody's desperate this month and not the next. Don't let your clients know you're desperate though, but just saying internally, right? So knowing your self-worth and knowing how much freaking hard work goes into this and educating your client on that is really important because people have no idea. My second year was 4 to 6K average for weddings and events. I grossed almost 200, and this was a few less events, but what happens is that the more you make, the less events you have to do for more money, which is amazing. And then I rose my prices a lot throughout the year. I built my self-worth. It was really scary and hard, but I pushed through it, and I networked. And this is the year I really networked and expanded my brand recognition. My third year, which is coming up, I already have my averages set through that are about $10,000 to $12,000 average for my weddings. I have quite a few that are $6,000, $7,000 and some that are more. 200K is our projected gross, and I'm hoping that we have about 20 to 25. I have a baby on the way, so I want to slow things down a little bit. And so these are my goals here. Focus on family, rein in excess unneeded expenses, and that it's hard because you get all these calls and you're like, oh, should I take that $4,000 wedding because I want that deposit? And you're like, nah, it's okay. Something bigger is going to come. And being okay with that and letting that go. So customer communication management, I respond quickly. I've got my gatekeeper, my intro email, filters everyone out that's not worthy. Communicating your vision of their vision is really important. Listening to them and being that angel of flower magic for them is really important. If you can't read your client, I can read their mind somehow. I don't know how I do it, but they'll say a few words about one picture. I'll look at the rest of the photos, and I know exactly what to say about every other photo that they have on there for their bouquet. And they're like, how'd you know? That's exactly how I feel about that. And it's just because I'm listening, and I just am good at my job. I don't really know how that works, but I think just really listening and knowing what people like and want plays a big role in that. And listen to them closely, pick up on cues, that kind of stuff. So these are, avoid back and forth. So these are kind of actually all in the same category. I want you to think before you answer emails. I have a few people that I mentor, and she'll just throw back answers really quick to emails, and then they keep replying with more questions. Don't do that. Think ahead of time. Answer, you know what their questions are gonna be. Answer them for them before they even ask. Don't treat emails like text message. That back and forth thing, it just disrespects their time, and it's frustrating. I know I hate it. Just tell me everything I need to know. I'll have a few questions, but everything else, just stay on top of that. And then incentives to quickly close the deal. I had a friend, this was really important. I always was, you want them to feel like you're excited about their wedding, but you don't want to act desperate. You don't want to beg. In fact, you want to act a little bit aloof. I'm really excited about your wedding. I love everything that we've come up with, but I'm really busy, and I've got tons of, there's lots of ways you can say it nicely. If you act like the high school guy that had 40 dates lined up, they will want you. And I know that's so weird, but it's true because that's just how we are, especially women. We want the things that we can't have. And it's just really hard. It's been really hard for me to really wrap my head around this, but I tried it a couple times, super hardcore. I pushed back because I didn't even want the client. For real, I was like, I don't want you anymore. And she's like, no, but wait, I want you really bad. And I'm like, 2 minutes ago, you were like, man, I don't know. And so it's really interesting to like try that out and see it work. And it doesn't work every time, but not everybody's your client, so it's fine. Okay, so some important takeaways. Tenacity is everything. I know I had somebody tell me yesterday that I'm a special kind of breed, so it could just be me. But I like to think that you can learn anything and you can be anything if you have the tenacity and you have that fire under your butt. Successful people, they work all the time. All the time. All the time. There is no such thing as work-life balance until later. So the first year, the second year, I have done nothing but work. This year, I've been like, okay, I'm gonna take a vacation. Next year, I'm gonna have a baby. So I set this up so now I can kind of start reeling back, and I'm not trying to get those 37 weddings because they're only $6,000 each or $5,000 each. I can reel back and find some time for myself and maybe invest in an assistant again and kind of start making that work. But like no joke, at the very beginning of your business, it should be a screaming infant that you do not put down. Or at least that's what I did, and it worked for me. Surround yourself with supportive family and friends. My dude, my baby daddy husband, we've been together for like 12 years. We're not married, but when I first moved in with him at the very beginning of this, he could afford to pay my rent. So I used every penny of that rent money to pay for marketing. I did not have to take out a credit card. I budgeted it, so that's how much I spent every month. And I went over, and when I went over, that means I didn't go to eat fancy stuff or I didn't go shopping that month. So some people can't do that, and that's okay, and you might have to pull a little bit of credit, but just, make it modest. It doesn't have to be too much. I think I was spending $500 or $600 a month at that point, so that's not too much. I spend way more now, but then at the very beginning, it wasn't. Thumbtack was really great for me in the beginning because of that, but again, they don't have a lot of clients that have tons of money. It just helped me, give me like a bouncing board to take off my company. So your clientele isn't everyone. This is hard for some people. I don't have a 100% booking rate, like at all, and I'm fine with that. In fact, there's a lot of clients that I just don't even know. Like I give them my vetting form, my intro, and they disappear. When it comes down to making proposals, if that's what I think of as who my clients could be. If I make a proposal for you, that means you came through my bridge, through my gate, over my bridge, and now we're talking, so you likely have some money and you could potentially afford me. I would say my booking rate's about 60%, and I'm totally okay with that. If you're booking every client, your prices are way too low. Or it's your first year of business and you're trying to get as much experience as possible, because that's what happened with me. I had a 100% booking rate when I first started, because I was the cheapest florist around. Also, don't hate those florists, because that client that I gave, like if I was somebody else, that client that I gave a $1,500 wedding to would never in a million years ever be my client today. So if you are somewhere in the midst of that, don't hate those beginner florists that aren't charging much. You can hate the ones that should be charging $4,500 or $6,000 that have been in business for 10 years, but because they're your competitors and they're the ones that are bringing the value of what we do that have worked so hard to down. But the ones that are just starting out, they're getting their like $1,500, $2,000 brides, they're never going to be your client. Have patience, have faith in your brand and your work. And higher prices means less work and hopefully more money. That's what I said earlier. Being friendly doesn't mean acting desperate. I know I mentioned all of that before too. So this is me, and do we have any time left?
2 minutes.
Holy cow!
All right.
That's awesome. Okay. You want some water?
Well deserved.
So I hope that wasn't so fast that you didn't understand anything I said. Are there any questions? Yes.
In regards to raising your prices,
Yeah.
how do you decide to do that? So are you changing your markup on the flowers, or are you doing it on the labor,
Yeah.
or a little bit of both probably?
Yeah, definitely a little bit of both. I think when I first started, I knew nothing about cent counting, and I kind of just guessed my prices because it just felt ridiculous to charge $60 for a center. You just have these really ridiculous ideas of what flowers were, because in my case, I didn't have any flower experience. I was a normal person that didn't have a lot of money. So of course $85 or $150 is ridiculous for a centerpiece. like in my little tiny pea brain. So just, that was, when I first started, it was just guessing. And once I did 2 weddings, honestly one, literally I did 1 wedding and I was like, I'm raising my prices. I did another wedding, I'm like, I'm raising them again. Like it was just constantly, like the amount of work that goes into it is just ridiculous. And so you really, yeah, so then I learned about stem counting and I learned like ×3 for stems, and then I pulled ×4, and there's all these different, you know, and I played around with numbers, but there had to be a comfortable, gradual thing for me because my clientele, like A, I wanted to make money, and B, I wanted to not be that client that's bringing down the business. I'm not client florist, is not bringing down the business, but I also needed to pay the bills and like have a gradual growth. I couldn't go from charging $2,000 for a wedding, now it's 10, like that just wasn't gonna work. So I did it little by little as I felt comfortable. And by little, I mean one wedding proposal to the next wedding proposal. And it would be, I properly stem count and be like, that's a little too much. So then I just tweak down the cost, the total cost. You know, you can like override it. I don't usually stem count everything prior. I have a general guesstimate now, and I usually just move that up, and then as I build the centerpiece, I try to stay within that number. So that's kind of how I do stem counting. And then I have the goal of 30% labor. That's what I charge now, on top of the 3 × 3. My goal is also 3.5 with 30% labor. I'm not there yet, but that's what's happening. So I'm still growing. Like by no means am I an expert. Like I plan for ×4 with, you know, 1,000,000% labor and like making lots of money. No, I'm kidding. Half kidding. So there was that, and it's just, it was really truly gradual and what felt right for me at the time. I think it was like 10% labor. I added labor. Let's start there. I added labor. On top of the ×3, I added labor. And then it was 10, and then it was 15, and then I think four weddings later it was 20, and then 25, and it was 25 for a very long time. Well, for a very long time, 2.5 years. So not very long, but you know, like a few months. And then it's 30, and I've been really comfortable there. And I also now have recently added a delivery charge on top of that. So it's 10% delivery on top of that. And I can have wiggle room there. If I really want to book it and I know I'm way over their budget, I'll just drop it down to 5 as long as it's not going to kill me and I need to rent a 20-foot truck and have all this, you know, excess stuff. If it's an easier sort of thing, I can decide where I'm going to have to wiggle room. Does that answer your question?
It does.
Okay.
So in that, with the delivery charge, we always charge the delivery. Do you find that you lose money in your delivery, or have you factored in your delivery already and your other prices above?
So I think labor and delivery are both a little bit tricky, and I'm actually still learning this. So normally at 10%, I'm usually fine with delivery. If it's a really big wedding, then I need to bump that up to 15. So that's really where I get to make the decision on what is the wedding like and what should this number be. So it's not always the same.
Do you have flips involved in any of your weddings?
Flips are extra, so repurposing, at the moment I do $250 if it's not a lot of work. If it's more work, I do more. If it's like no work and I know I'm gonna be setting up until the very last second, then I might just charge them a little bit. And if they're already spending a ton of money and I know we're gonna be there anyways, sometimes I just don't charge them at all. It really just depends wedding to wedding. Anything else? No?
Where do you find, so where do you advertise now, or where do you find the best place to find you? Where are your brides finding?
Okay, so my social media is free. So I wanted to mention this. Social media is a really great way to put all your energy into, make sure it looks beautiful and it really attracts your brand, because that is free advertising. Anywhere where you can get free and get yourself out there, put your name there. I have a free one on Wedding Wire. I am on the Knot. I mentioned that before. I do at the moment, I'm booking 4 or 5 brides. It's not a lot. I don't love it, but the numbers actually make sense.
Right.
So I'm keeping it for another year. But most of them come from, let's see, where do they come from? They just come to me. I think social media, I'll just get random, like, it's Googling too, so my SEO is pretty good, and I'm gonna be even making it better thanks to Holly's Like, I'm so excited. So I have really great SEO. It's a little bit of everything, you guys. Seriously, like every single pocket that you can focus on, that you're learning about here, focus on that, build that, spend time doing that, because it will make a difference. I cannot believe in Los Angeles, people Google florist and I come up. There's like thousands of us and I'm only 2.5 years old. But I've had people say I Googled you. Or I didn't Google you, but I Googled florist and there you were. And I was like, wow, it's working. So it actually works if you put the time in. If you build it, they will come. But yeah, so that, and then I have the blog, the blogs, like the fancy blog, the third party, like green wedding shoes. And that just gives me exposure. I've booked about 3 or 4 weddings through green wedding shoes, but it's not a ton. You had a question back there?
Oh, I was just gonna ask, you had talked about educating clients on like what your price is and what your worth is, which has kind of come up a couple of times today. I was just wondering what that conversation looks like, or how do you have that conversation with your clients?
I'm just super candid and I tell them what's up. I'm really like, I try to be super open and authentic about everything, and I just explain to them, like, they're like, well, you're more expensive. And I'm like, well, I put a lot more work into stuff. Like, your flowers are going to blow your mind. Like, have you read my reviews? Like, I'm not as bitchy like that, but that's what I'm thinking, right? Like, I'm going to give you magic, and it requires a lot of hands, and you're going to have a lot of really great premium blooms. And honestly, when people are like, well, maybe we don't need all those fancy flowers, then you're not the client for me, because that's what I do. Like, I'm not going to not do that. And if I take your wedding because I want the money, I'm gonna do it anyways and lose money. So like, I can't, it's just what I do. So I'm just super candid, and I talk to them like humans, and I tell them what's up, and I explain to them what we go through, and what it takes. And a lot of them are like, oh wow, okay, that makes sense. And I think we're out. 1 minute, one more question? Anybody?
Will you email us your wedding email?
Yeah, I will. It's really super long, I'm just warning you, but I like to kind of really cover all bases. So I talk about, in it, I'll talk about what to expect. I talk about why I'm expensive. I tell them I am not the cheapest florist around. Like, if you're priced, I like literally say I'm not the cheapest florist around. There are other more inexperienced or florists that have a different style that you can go find if you're price shopping. But if you want this, and then I explain what this is, then I'm the florist for you. And that is fantastic because they go away. I scare them away, and I want to scare them away. I don't want to waste my time with these people anymore. I just don't. It's not worth it. And so that's what, like, that, and was it scaring people away, and making sure that they know that they're not that important. Those 2 things are really big takeaways, but in the sweetest way ever. So I think my time is up. Feel free to ask me anything, and you're